Okay, a very good morning to all of you and good afternoon to our participants joining from Melbourne. So we warmly welcome you to the webinar on careers and pathways in psychology, organized by Prospects College of Higher Education, Sri Lanka, and Deakin University in Australia. A brief intro about our partnership with Deakin University. So Deakin University and PCHE has a very strong partnership since 2019, and we have pathways for students to study the Bachelor of Early Childhood Education and the Bachelor of Psychological Science at Deakin University. So students have the opportunity to complete the first year of the degree in Sri Lanka at PCHE and transfer to Deakin University to complete the rest of the degree. And now we have close to 50 students who have transferred to Deakin through these pathways to study ECE and psychology. So this diagram would show you a snapshot of how it works with the pathway to the Bachelor of Psychological Science. So students who have required O-level results would can start the foundation program and then move on to the diploma, which covers the first year subjects. If not, with the required A-level results, the students could directly join the diploma and then transfer to Deakin to complete the second and third years, where they receive a Bachelor of Psychological Science. And if they wish to do the honors degree, then they have to do an extra year, and they receive a Bachelor of Psychological Science with an honors. So as I mentioned, we have had a long-standing partnership with Deakin University, and the faculty and staff have been very supportive to help our students smoothly transition to Deakin. And these are some pictures of our students being welcomed by the staff, by the faculty and staff of the School of Psychology at Deakin. And you could see our speaker for today, Dr. Meaghan Danby, also in some of these pictures, welcoming the students. So these are also some of the pictures from the Arts and Education faculty on the events that they have welcomed our students to Deakin University. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our speaker for this webinar, Dr. Meaghan Danby, who has been very supportive to nurture the partnership between the School of Psychology and PCHE. So Dr. Meaghan Danby is a senior lecturer in Deakin University School of Psychology. She chairs a core undergraduate psychology unit where her students learn about the mind's cognitive processes, such as memory and attention processes. She's passionate about ensuring psychology students are work ready with industry relevant skills when they complete their degrees. In her research, Dr. Danby examines techniques that appropriately support witnesses to remember details about crimes during police interviews. Through this research, Dr. Danby works with several Australian police forces to educate police and witness memory. So Dr. Danby, over to you. And we
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I'm just going to share my screen now so that I can present.
Yeah.
All right, there we are. I'll just reopen the chat box. So as introduced, my name is Dr. Meaghan Danby. I am a senior lecturer at Deakin University, and I teach our students one of our core units in our undergraduate program. I teach students all about mind processes. So things like how we think, how we learn things, how we remember things, how we pay attention to things. And then in my research role that I also do at Deakin University, I do research on psychology in these similar processes. So I research things like memory and how they affect police witnesses that might have seen a crime so that we know they're remembering the crime accurately and they're not going to give us wrong information, hopefully. That's my area of research and my area of teaching. So I'm here today to talk to you about psychology, about what psychology is, the types of careers that you can have if you're interested in psychology, as well as a few of the pathways to studying psychology. I'm going to talk you through pathways to become a registered psychologist in Australia, if that's something that you're interested in. And I'm also going to talk you through a few alternative career options as well and the study pathways associated with them if you're interested in psychology, but maybe not becoming a registered psychologist and going all the way down that pathway. Today, I'm also going to run you through a few activities that we can do together that introduce you to what psychology is and the types of things that we study. Do people have access to the chat box or the microphones if you want to talk? Is that something, yeah, people can access? Wonderful. Well, I wanted to start by asking a question to everyone in the room. And my question is, do you know what psychology is? What is it? Can anyone give me an idea of like a definition of what psychology might be or what we study or what type of people psychologists might be interested in? I'm wondering if anyone in the room has any ideas about that question. And you can either type in the chat box to tell me your answers, or if you want to talk on a microphone, if you have access, you can. Oh, we've got some great answers here. The scientific study of the mind and behavior. Well done to people that answered that question. You guys are spot on. That's exactly what psychologists study and what we study in our pathway here. When people think of psychology, does anyone think of mental health? Does anyone think about how people are feeling? Oh, yes, absolutely. Someone that's interested in mental health. You are spot on. Does anyone else think about mental health or associate mental health with psychology? Is that a connection that people make sometimes? Yes, definitely, says Carvey. Wonderful. Mental health is probably the big thing that most people think of when they think of what psychology is. A lot of people associate mental health and working with clients that might have mental health difficulties or problems, working with those people to help them overcome mental health difficulties. Absolutely, that's what a psychologist does, and it's probably the most prominent area of psychology. What a lot of people think of. Absolutely, definitely, yes. You are all correct. It's what a psychologist does is deal in mental health and help people that have mental health problems. But I want to be very clear to everyone today that psychologists do not only work in mental health problems. That's one area of psychology. But psychology is a really broad discipline, and we teach lots of different sort of sub areas within psychology, not only mental health. So here I've tried to summarize some of the other big areas that attract a lot of people who are interested in psychology that are come under the banner of psychology. So I might start up the top here with our Olympic rings. Some psychologists are sports psychologists. They are interested in helping athletes perform at their top level. Athletes need trainers for their physical body, yes, but they also need psychologists or experts in the mind and mental performance to be able to perform at the top of their game. So sports psychology is one alternative area that is still covered with moving down along the right-hand side. Just Google really large companies, smaller organizations, work in roles related to human resources. Who can we hire for the company? Who's going to be a good employee? Who's going to be a difficult employee? How can we resolve conflict in the workplace? Psychologists work with companies, human resource management sort of role. These questions. Employees what in that company. Coming further down the bottom here, we have a little picture of a judge and a police hat. This forensic psychology. This is the area that I work in. I'm a bit psychology. Work in this area. Forensic psychology is about how psychology applies to the law and the legal system. This is justice system. Train them on how they can do a better job speaking to vulnerable witnesses when they've seen a crime or maybe they've experienced a crime. They have to remember what has happened very accurately. Other forensic psychologists might work in a courtroom, helping explain to jurors about psychological problems or explain the effects of something, help them make a decision, or they can people who have committed crimes and work in a prison. Around the outside here, I have a picture of children. Psychologists often work in schools. This is a type of psychology called educational and developmental psychology. We call them ed and dev psychologists for short sometimes. Psychologists might travel around a range of different schools in the area and help conduct children if they need any extra supports, or maybe the child might have a learning difficulty, maybe they have ADHD or something like this, or a learning difficulty, with kids to help them in that school environment. Up on the outside further on the left-hand side, now psychologists might work in counselling. People get together in a relationship, there might be some conflict there, or problem that they struggle to work through. So they might be a psychologist or counselling in their relationship. They might go together. Psychologist specialises in partners and relationships. And lastly, up the top, we have a brain. Some psychologists specialise in neuropsychology, which means understanding different parts of the brain work, what or how they control our body or our thoughts or our emotions. And they understand brain disorders, what happens when something goes wrong in the brain. Correct. Hopefully. Psychology is much broader than just mental health, but certainly mental health is one big component of psychology. What do all of these areas have in common? That underlying theme that you guys told me at the start of this talk, that psychology is the study of the mind and behaviour. Ultimately, no matter what area you are interested in the most as a sub area or a specialisation, all of these fields underlying them have an interest in understanding people's minds and people's behaviour. So that's what all of these areas are about, studying the mind and behaviour. So I put activities together, study mind and behaviour, and then we can talk about the course for how to study the mind even more if you're interested in psychology. Oh, my voice isn't clear. Thank you for telling me. Is it the microphone, perhaps? Maybe I should change microphones. Is it a bit of a problem for people?
It's a bit better now.
Oh, it's better now? Is that okay? All right. Well, I might keep going, but if it happens again and it's not clear, please just let me know or type in the chat box, let me know, and I'll just swap over microphones. It could be a microphone problem, maybe. Thanks. Thanks for letting me know. All right, so I thought we could do a few activities first to get to know what studying the mind and behaviour looks like. We can study the mind a little bit today, and we might even study your minds a little bit in this session as well to see how your minds are working. So the first activity that I have here is a bit of an assessment of what we already know about psychology. So I am going to give you 5 statements, and all I want you to do is tell me if you think they're true or false. So you can write your answer in the chat box if you like, or you can just write it to yourself on a list if you like, with a pen and paper. But I'm going to show you 5 statements one at a time, and I want you to just tell me your own thoughts, your guesses, if they're true or false. They're all about the mind and behavior. They're all about psychology. So here is our first statement. We only use 10% of our brains. Human beings only use 10% of our brains. Do people think this is true or false? Oh, we're getting lots of answers in the chat box. This is wonderful. Some people are saying false, 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 true, true, true. I'm looking at all your answers. Wonderful. So a bit of a mix between true and false. This statement is false. Well done to all the people that said it's false. Sneaking in there. Well done. We actually use every part of our brain. This is a myth, a misconception that we only use 10% of our brains. Instead, we use the whole brain, and that's quite important to being able to function as a human being, because our brain has lots of different structures within it, And to function properly, we need those structures to talk to each other, to coordinate movements. For example, if you're just doing something simple like catching a ball, you need some parts of your brain to be responsible for seeing and taking in that information of where the ball's traveling from. You need other parts of your brain to coordinate timing for when to move your hands to catch it, and another part of your brain to coordinate actually moving your arms and your hands to make this movement of closing in on the ball. So all these different parts of the brain are required at all different parts of your day just to move around as a human being and do something simple, like a little action like that. Okay, so question number 2. We learn more effectively when we are taught by our preferred learning style. Some people think, oh, I'm quite a visual learner. I like to see things visually. Other people might think, oh, I'm a auditory learner. I like to listen to things, have someone explain it to me. Some people feel we call them a kinesthetic learner, a body kinesthetic learner. I learn by doing things. I have to act things out to learn. So what this statement is saying is that when we're taught by the style that we like the most, that we think works with us, we're actually going to learn more. And lots of people are saying true to this one. True, true, true. Everyone thinks it's true. Everyone. Wonderful. Well, this one, if we're going to take a look at the answer, it's actually false. I think I've tricked you all. This one is false. Research actually shows that we don't learn any better when we're taught in the style that we prefer. Instead, it seems like we learn better when the content we're learning matches a particular style. So certain types of content might be easier to learn through reading. Other types of content are easier to learn through doing. It's not about our preference, it's about the thing we're trying to learn instead. So a bit of a tricky one, that one. All right, let's try out a third one. Human memory is like a recording of what happened. True or false? We think memory is like a recording of what happened, where we can go back and experience what happened. It just sort of records it for us in our head. Couple of trues, and then a lot of people saying false. False, 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 false. Well done to everyone saying false. This one is false as well. Years ago, decades ago, scientists did think that memory was like a recorder. It was like taking a video recording of something. You could rewind it, play it again, rewind it, play it again, and remember the same thing in the same way each time we remember it. But we now know this is false. Through more modern research in psychology, we now see that memory is reconstructed every time we remember something. So when we remember it, we reconstruct the little details back together. And when that happens, sometimes we reconstruct different details, or one thing might be wrong, or we might put a mistake in there next time. So biases, errors can happen in our memory because it's not like a recording. It's actually being reconstructed in the brain every single time we remember something. All right, statement number 4, placebo treatments can work. Have people heard of placebo treatments before? Do you know what this term is? True? True. Okay, I'm guessing you guys know what placebo treatments are then. So placebo treatments, if anyone does not know, placebo treatments are like a fake pill. So a placebo pill is a sugar pill normally, and it looks identical to a drug, a real drug that might be being tested in a psychology experiment. It looks identical, but it has no effect. There's no actual active drug in it whatsoever. And in an experiment, what would usually happen is some people might take the real pill and some people will take the placebo pill. So we can see the effects of the drug compared to nothing. And a lot of people are saying true for this. Well done to everyone saying true. I'm really, really impressed with your knowledge because this one is true. And I think it's a bit of a tricky one because if people are taking a sugar pill with no real drugs in it, you would think that wouldn't work. It shouldn't have any effect whatsoever. But what we see in these studies is that sometimes people do show improvements in their symptoms, even when they're just taking a placebo pill with no active drug ingredients whatsoever. The reason we think they're improving is because of a mental reason. They think they're taking a drug, and so they end up getting better. Their brain helps them get better in that way, which is quite amazing to show the power of the mind on the human body. All right, this is our last statement, our fifth one. People with ADHD can't pay attention. They cannot pay attention. ADHD, if anyone doesn't know, is attention deficit hyperactive disorder. You might have heard about this disorder before. It's a diagnosed condition that some people have, and everyone is telling me false, 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 false in the chat box. They can, but it's really, really difficult. You are spot on. False. It is false. They can pay attention. You are completely correct. What ADHD is a symptom means attention is dysregulated. Now, that doesn't mean that people with ADHD can't pay attention. It means their attention is dysregulated. It is hard for them to focus their attention on the thing they want to focus on. So, for example, someone might be trying to focus on this presentation. They're trying to focus on listening to my voice, on looking at the screen. But with ADHD, maybe something else is grabbing their attention. They're focused outside looking at a window because they can't focus where they want to focus. So they can pay attention, just not on the thing that they want to pay attention to. They're focused somewhere else. Well done, everyone. You guys did really, really well. Did people count up how many they got right? Does anyone want to share how many you got right out of 5 in the chat box? Did anyone get like 3 out of 5 correct? Does anyone remember? Oh, you got 4 out of 5, a 3 out of 5, a 4 out of 5. Excellent work. I'm really, really impressed. These are really high scores. Often I trick a lot of students with these questions, so you've done very, very well to get so many of them correct. 3 is excellent and 4 is amazing out of 5. Well done. Okay, let's move on to activity number 2. Now we've sorted out the true from the false, the myth from the facts about psychology. Let's get into testing your mind a little bit. I want to test your attention processes. So I'm going to show you a sentence on the next slide, and it's just one short sentence, and I'm going to ask you to do one very simple task when I show the sentence. I want you to count how many letter F there are in the sentence. F for fish, the letter F. Count how many F's there are in the sentence. Now, the trick is you have to be paying pretty close attention because I'm only going to show you the sentence for a few seconds. It's going to be very, very quick. It's not going to be that long. You have to quickly go through and count all the letter F for fish, okay? So I'm going to show you the sentence now. Here we go. Start counting. Okay, that was 10 seconds. I know it's very quick. How many letter Fs did people count? 4, 4, 4, 3, 5. Okay, some different numbers. 4, 3, another 3, a 2. Yep, yep. Well done, everyone. Okay, 2. Now, this is a bit surprising to me because we all saw the same sentence and we can all read, we can all look at a short sentence. That's pretty easy, but we're getting a lot of different numbers here. We're getting 2s, 3s, 4s, lots of different numbers. I'm going to show you the sentence one more time, okay? We'll have one more go, and this time see how many Fs you can count. Here we go, one more time. Okay. Does anyone want to change their answer? How many did you get this time? Oh, someone's got 6. I saw a 6 in there. Another 6. But still 3, 5, 6. Yep, a lot of 5s this time. Okay, still a bit of variability though. Again, we're all seeing the same sentence. How are we all counting different numbers of Fs? This seems a bit odd. Well, let's look at the sentence again, but this time I'm going to show you where the Fs are. Okay, let's look at the answers. Here we go. Finished. Files are the result of years of scientific study combined with the experience of years. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 F's in total. Well done. Of was ignored. You've picked up on that. Yes, absolutely. So some people might have missed the F in an of. Did other people find that? Did anyone miss this F too in scientific? That's a bit of a tricky one. Did anyone miss those ones? Yes. They're tricky, aren't they? Yes. So, what should really be a pretty simple task of reading a sentence is actually really difficult when we're looking letter by letter. If you missed some of the F's, please don't feel bad. That's completely normal. Actually, what it means if you missed some of the F's is your brain is working just as it should be. Because what's going on here is when we read information, when we read a sentence, our brain skips the individual letter by letter because that would be really slow and intensive for it to have to look at every single letter one by one by one. Our brain wants us to function quickly and fast and be efficient. So instead, it skims over things to look at whole words instead and take away the meaning of what those words mean rather than focus on the letters and how they look. So if you did miss some, that's completely understandable, and it just means your brain's working really, really well and efficient and working very quickly. It is difficult to overcome this problem, though. Having our brain work nice and efficiently can sometimes help us. So while we might miss some letter F's, we become very efficient at reading something even when it's a bit jumbled. I'm going to let you have a look at this slide. Can anyone understand what's being written here? Yes? Yes? Wonderful. Yeah, I'm getting lots of yeses now. That's wonderful. I couldn't believe that I could actually understand what I was reading. What we're seeing here is that when the first and last letter of a word are accurate, but all of the middle letters are jumbled up, our brains can still read it. Absolutely, you're spot on. We can still comprehend the words just with the first and last letter. It's the same process that stops us seeing those F's that lets us read these words very efficiently because our brain is so good at processing whole words rather than individual letters. Well done. Alrighty, now I have one final test of your minds for you today before we start talking about course structures in psychology. My final test is a test of your memories and your memory capacities. So, what I'm going to do is show you some numbers, and I'm going to show you the numbers one at a time. So, there'll be one number on the slide, and then I'll move to the next number, and there'll be one number on the slide, and then the next number, and so on. So, you'll see the numbers one at a time. And then when I finish, I want you to tell me what the numbers were that you saw in backwards order. So if you see the numbers 1 and then 2 and then 3, I need you to tell me I saw 3, 2, 1. You got to tell me them in backwards order, okay? Pretty tricky. We're going to do 5 rounds again, and I'm going to try and start off easy, but we'll see if we get a bit harder as we go. Okay, so looking at the screen, I'm not going to talk. I'm just going to show you the numbers one at a time. Here we go for round 1. All right, what were those numbers in backwards order? Well done, everyone. Oh, you're spot on. 185. Well done if you said that. Let's kick it up a notch in round 2. This one might be a little bit trickier. Okay. What were the numbers in backwards order this time? Oh, well done. Was this one a bit trickier? You are spot on. 4769. Well done to everyone that said that. Round 3, let's take it up a little bit further. This is going to be a bit trickier again. Here we go. Okay. Does anyone want to take a guess at the numbers this time? Backwards order. Well done. Oh, yeah, a few people getting it now. Yep. Well done. Tricky, this one. Here we go. This is what they were in backwards order. All right, getting a bit trickier now. Let's try another one. Ooh, here we go. Can anyone do this one? I want to take a guess. Yep, well done. Couple of answers here. It's getting harder, isn't it? It is getting trickier. Here was the answer, 259681. If anyone got that, well done. It is getting harder. Look, I've got one final round for you. This is our last round. This is the hardest round, okay? So paying attention, trying to remember the numbers. Last round, here we go. How did you go? It's so tricky, isn't it? Well done to everyone that's getting it. I see it coming through now. Yep, yep, yep. Well done. It was 1694732. Well done to everyone that got it. It's so tricky. That was a hard one. Well done to everyone that got it. I can see a few people direct messaging me. Wonderful. This was a test of your memory capacity, particularly a type of memory we call working memory, which is how our memory works to deal with new information coming in. I was giving you number information coming in as you were reading the numbers, and you had to manipulate that information in your minds to turn it backwards and reverse it. And as we got longer and longer and longer, I think it probably would have got harder and harder and harder. So this is challenging your working memory capacity to see how many things we can fit in your memory before it gets too hard. Now, most people have a capacity around about seven numbers. So after this point, it gets very, very tricky. A normal range is anywhere from 5 to 9 numbers, but it's very tricky task, very tricky. Well done to everyone that did that. Alrighty, so I'm going to move on to talk about some study pathways. If you are interested in studying the mind a bit more and learning more about how the human mind works and how human behavior works, I'm going to talk about some of the pathways that you can follow to do that at Deakin. Now, we already heard a little bit about the pathway to study the combined sort of course pathway at PCHE and Deakin University. So I'll just recap briefly this one because you did cover it at the start, Yasara. Um, if you complete the diploma in psychology at PCHE, we have a joint partnership that we are very proud of at Deakin University, where you can enter into the second year of our Bachelor of Psychological Science. Now, I think that's really cool because our Bachelor of Psychological Science degree at Deakin University is normally 3 years, and local students have to study for 3 years. But if you've already done the Diploma of Psychology at PCHE, you get fast tracked once you get to Deakin to enter in year 2, and you skip year number 1 of our Bachelor of Psych Science because you've already got your diploma in psychology. So you would study year 2 and 3 with us and exit Deakin University with the Bachelor of Psychological Science from us, the full course. And you would also be awarded your diploma in psychology from PCHE. So you're leaving with 2, not just 1 courses. And I think that's a really efficient way to do your studies. Year 2 and 3, the part that's at Deakin University, is in Melbourne in Australia. So I've marked that on the little map here where Melbourne is down the bottom of Australia. That's where I live and where our Deakin University campuses are. So you'd come study year 2 and 3 of our Bachelor of Psych Science and ultimately leave with your diploma of psychology as well from PCHE. So I'll talk to you a little bit more about the Deakin side of this course pathway and tell you about what that looks like. So here is an overview of the course of our Bachelor of Psychological Science. We often shorten it and just call it a Bachelor of Psych Science because it's a lot of words, it's very long. Now, as I said, if you are studying the Diploma of Psychology at PCHE, you skip year number 1. So for you, this course would only look like these 2 years here. You get to skip the first year. So what you can see in years 2 and 3 is the green units here, what we've labeled in green, are core units. The core units, every student has to study, and they give you a taste of a lot of different areas in psychology. We talked about some of them at the start of this talk. For example, this unit, cognitive psychology, you get a taste of understanding mental processes in the mind, like we just studied together, that with our memory test, you learn about memory and attention and learning processes. And I think that's probably the best unit in the whole course because I run that unit. You'll also learn about developmental psychology. You'll learn about children and how they develop, and adolescents and how they develop. You'll learn about psychopathology down here. This is all about mental illnesses and clinical illnesses. You'll learn about social psychology up here. This is how people work together in groups or in partnerships. So the course is designed to give you a little taste of lots of different areas. It's like an introduction to different areas of psychology. And we also have this pink unit here, which is an internship unit. That gives you a taste of working in the field of psychology. In that unit, Deakin staff help you find a placement outside of Deakin. It might be in a psychologist's office or a hospital or something that you're interested in, and you get to go do some sort of on-the-job learning in that sort of placement role, which is a really key unit that we're quite proud of in this course, because not a lot of Australian universities get to offer that, and it makes people really prepared for work at the end of their course. I just see the question, what are the pathways for studying a PhD? I'm going to move on to the next slide, and I'll answer that here because this is our pathways slide that talks about a few different career options. So I'll answer that here. So this slide talks you through the requirements required in what courses to do, the requirements you need to become a registered psychologist. But I'm going to talk you through it along the way. So first up, everyone will need to study an undergraduate degree. If you have done the pathway where you have done your diploma in psychology at PCHE, and then you've come for year 2 and 3 of your Bachelor of Psychological Science at Deakin, that covers this undergraduate component, all complete. That's what that is. After your undergraduate component, those first 3 years, you are qualified for a broad range of relevant careers, and I'll talk you through those careers in a moment. To become a registered psychologist, though, you do need to do some extra study after those initial 3 years. And the reason for that is because in Australia, psychologists are a very respected career. They're a very esteemed career that are well respected and well paid. And because of that, there is a lot of regulation around who can become a psychologist. You need to be well trained and educated in order to be a psychologist in this respectable career. So you need some more training after your undergraduate degree. To become qualified, you need to do a 4th year in psychology. The undergraduate will be 3 years. You will then do 1 4th year in psychology. That could be an honours program or a graduate diploma program. After the 4th year, you are qualified for provisional registration as a psychologist. That does not mean that you are a full-on registered psychologist yet. It's just provisional registration. You still need to complete the final course, which is a master's or a doctorate degree. Most people will do a master's, and that's 2 years. Some people will do a doctorate degree, and that is 3 years. It's just personal choice and personal preference. So altogether, that's about 6 years of study. Okay, so 3 years at undergraduate, 1 year at 4th year, and then 2 years for a master's is 6 years altogether. That is what you do to be registered as a psychologist. You end up with general registration, and you are a qualified psychologist at the end of that. Now, someone asked, I'm getting a lot of direct messages, so other people may not be able to see them, sorry. Someone asked about a PhD. To complete a PhD in psychology, that's a doctorate degree. So that's this final one here at the end. You need the undergraduate degree first and then the 4th year to be eligible for PhD entry. A PhD does not qualify you as a psychologist, though. It doesn't qualify you for general registration. A PhD is a research degree, not a qualifying degree in this pathway. So it's for people that want to learn more about the mind. All right. If I'm getting a lot of questions, what I might do is I might just keep talking through some of the career options, and then finish up and take these questions at the end, just because I'm getting a lot of direct messages with individual questions in them, and I want to make sure I can answer them, but still give everyone the information that they need. So I'll talk through careers that you can have. I'm going to talk through careers as a registered psychologist and the opportunities there. And then I'm going to talk through a couple of career options. If you want to exit with just an undergraduate degree, you don't want to do that many years study, that's completely fine. I'll talk through that, and then I'll get to all these questions. So please keep putting them in the chat box, and I will get to them at the end. Okay, so most people interested in psychology are very interested in helping people with mental health problems. So here I've taken just a snapshot of what the career opportunities are in Australia for working as this type of psychologist, one that helps people with mental health problems, called a clinical psychologist. Right now in Australia, we have a shortage of psychologists. We need so many more psychologists. In Australia, our leading job search site is seek.com. And so I had a bit of a look at seek.com recently at how many psychologist jobs are advertised, how many we need. And there are over 2,000 at the moment being advertised right now. We need a lot of psychologists. People are waiting 6 months to try and get into a psychologist and get some help. So we need a lot more. Psychology is a very valued job in Australia. So the psychologists achieve quite a decent salary that I've indicated here on the slide. Now, this is in Australian dollars. So the average typical salary on seek.com, the job searching website, is 115,000 Australian dollars. So you might need to convert that into your currency or into rupees, but because that's in Australian dollars. But that's the salary per year. We often talk in salaries per year for psychologists. Because of how much demand there is for psychologists at the moment, we are seeing a large growth in career opportunities. As you can see on this graph, each year, historically, growth has been rising 13%, and that's expected to continue into the future as well. We simply cannot get enough qualified psychologists. We need many, many more. Now, that's a snapshot of clinical psychology, but I did tell you at the start that psychology is not just about mental health. That's clinical psychology, this top area here that I told you about. But I also mentioned a range of other disciplines that psychologists can work in, didn't I? So here are some of the other specialization areas that you might choose to become specialized in if you are a registered psychologist. You might become a neuropsychologist. As a reminder, those are the ones that focus on the brain. So once you're a registered psychologist, you might decide, I'm going to become focused on the brain, become a neuropsychologist, and you might work in a hospital then, and you might diagnose brain disorders or brain problems or help someone if they've had a stroke or a car accident that's damaged their brain. I talked about working with children in schools. Those are educational psychologists over here. So educational psychologists become specialized in working with children and adolescents or maybe their parents to help them overcome difficulties. I also mentioned forensic psychologists down here. I won't talk through all of them, but just finally, forensic psychologists. You could become specialized to do assessments with prisoners and offenders in a prison to help them change their patterns of behavior. So all of the areas I talked about at the start become specialist areas once you have completed your registration pathway to become a psychologist. However, not everyone wants to do those 6 years. It's a lot of years. I completely understand that. So here are some of the other areas you might work in if you wanted to exit with just an undergraduate degree after you've done your diploma from PCHE and your bachelor, the 2 years left, the last 2 years of the Bachelor of Psychological Science at Deakin. You might be interested in stopping study after that and working in some of these areas. So when you ask with just a 3-year of bachelor's, what opportunities do you have? This is a snapshot of some of the areas you can work in here to answer your question. So you might want to work in the community, first of all, at the top. Our graduates often go, so you're not a qualified psychologist after 3 years, but you might work in these similar fields. So in the community, our graduates might go in and work to develop new community programs to try and help people who are homeless in an area, for example, or are disadvantaged, or maybe a certain community have a lot of immigrants living in that area, and they might benefit from particular programs that could be run to help them learn English, perhaps in Australia. So running community-based programs is one area that our graduates go into. Government, going across to the top, is another area a lot of our graduates go into. When I finished my undergraduate training in psychology, my first job was working for the Australian government. I worked for the police branch of the government. I wasn't a police officer, but I worked in a policy role, writing policy, making changes to projects that were running that could help police work better in Australia. So that was a government position that I went into. And there's lots of different government roles in Australia around different policy changes that might be needed for maybe people who use substances. Perhaps we need to help with alcohol policies, or maybe we need help with policies for people who experience violence. How can we better support people who have been attacked or have experienced violence? Those sorts of policies our psychology graduates might work in. Coming down to the second row, human resources. I mentioned how psychologists work for Google, like big companies in their human resources departments. Well, even with just the first 3 years of a bachelor's, you might work in a role similar to this. You might work in a human resources department of an agency. It could be a government agency or a private department, private organization, working in administering tests to help with employing the best sort of employees. You might help people deal with difficult discussions if someone needs to be fired from their job as well. So you can work in that human management side of an organization. Coaching and counseling. If you're interested in helping people and counseling them, maybe over the phone for phone counseling like telehealth, or even face-to-face for a counseling appointment, you can work as a counselor or a coach. And down in the bottom row, marketing. So someone with a psychology degree might go into working for agencies and companies that want to promote themselves. How can we help sell more products by understanding the mind of our consumers? For example, if you walk into a supermarket or a shop, a nice shop, you might smell a nice smell or hear nice music. Those are things that psychologists have probably done, or people with an undergraduate degree in psychology have probably done to make customers feel at ease and feel happy, so they spend more money. That's marketing tactics. Even with an undergraduate degree, you might work in that sort of field. And lastly, health and human services. A lot of our graduates will go into roles that support people who might be in aged care or might have disabilities, might have substance use problems, or even children. A lot of my students that I supervise go into working for a department called child protection to help work with vulnerable children that might need some help. So these are some of the fields, not every single field, but some of the fields that you can work in, even with just a 3-year bachelor's. Now, I mentioned counseling as one of those areas you might be interested in working in. So for people who are particularly interested in working with clients and treating clients and helping them overcome difficulties that they might be facing in their life, sort of one-on-one client-centered practice, either in telehealth appointments over a phone or Zoom or face-to-face in real life, you might be more interested in counseling than becoming a registered psychologist through that full 6-year pathway that we talked about. So at Deakin, we have a fairly new course that is open to international students that we're pretty proud of, called the Master of Counselling. So if you are someone that is pretty interested in those client-centered skills and counselling people, you might be interested in this program after an undergraduate degree. And for this program, you do not need to do that 4th year. You can enter straight after the undergraduate degree program. And you can see from the course structure up here, you'll get experience in counselling in a range of different disciplines. So for example, relationship counselling, if couples have problems they want to talk to you about, talking in telehealth appointments, counselling over telehealth is up here, group counselling appointments here, helping people work through grief and bereavement. So again, you get experience helping counsel people in a range of different areas. There are supervision hours as a part of this course as well, which means that you are using some on-the-job skills to be able to practice your skills before you end up as a qualified counsellor at the end. I've also included the snapshot here from seek.com of the growth in the counselling sector that we see for people that have done a counselling accredited program instead of the full psychology program to be a registered psychologist. And you can see there's very similar growth in this area and even more job opportunities. At the moment, 3,600 jobs are being advertised right now. We need a lot more counsellors as well. So thank you so much for listening to this presentation. I really hope that we have learned a little bit about the mind together today, and you've learned a bit about careers in psychology in Australia and the pathways to study them. I know you've all have lots of really different questions, and some of them have been sent to me as direct messages, some are in the group chat. So why don't I go through answering some of these questions now, if that works? Yeah, wonderful.
That's fine.
Okay. Now I'll do my best. I don't know, I may not know every single question, but I'll definitely do my best. So I'm just going to start at the bottom and work my way up. I'm a nursing student with that qualification and psychology bachelor's. What opportunities would I have? So in Australia, you would need the psychology bachelor's. If you want to become a psychologist, the nursing qualification, though, nursing has its own, so there are different schools to psychology and they have their own qualification. So I'm not sure if you've studied nursing in Australia or overseas, but if you've studied it overseas, you'd need an accreditation program to match it to Australia if you want to work as a nurse. Yeah, okay, so if you studied it in Sri Lanka, you'll need to talk to the university about like having that qualification that you've got accredited on Australia's side if you want to be qualified in Australia. And so the university should be able to help you with that, because I'm not sure of, we get people from all different countries who've done all different sorts of qualifications in all different areas, and something like nursing, another one is psychology. We have really strict criteria on what courses are and aren't approved. So you'd need to check your individual course with someone to make sure your individual qualifications are approved, if you want to work as a nurse. All right, what are the requirements to receive a scholarship for the Doctor of Clinical Psych degree? So scholarships at that very end of the courses, like at the doctorate level courses, the end of the pathway, are really competitive. They are largely marks based, and so the admissions panel will look at marks that you got in the earlier courses, particularly the fourth year course that came right before it. And the students with the top marks in that fourth year course will be offered a scholarship. And the amount of scholarship funding available differs year to year. So I couldn't say in a particular year how many scholarships are available, because sometimes it's a little bit different and sometimes they take a few more students, a few less, but it's that fourth year program, your scores in that year, that will dictate scholarship to a doctorate degree. I'm just going to keep working upwards. There might be other requirements for working with the government, like having PR, which might be an issue for the graduates, or permanent residency is PR, if you're not wrong, which might be an issue for the graduates. But in Australia, we have post-study work rights in Australia, and they do change a little bit. The government make changes to how long the post-study work rights are for people who do not have permanent residency. But even if you're not a permanent resident, you've come over on a student visa and you've studied a course and you've finished a course in Australia, you will still have some post-study work rights. They do change the exact amount of how many years they are. it's also different if you've studied a bachelor's here compared to if you've studied a master's. If you've studied a master's or a doctorate, you get some extra post-study work rights, but you can study in those post-study work rights, you can work, in those post-study work rights without permanent residency, I believe. But of course, you should always check everything with the Australian government, but that's my understanding of it. With just a 3-year bachelor's, what job opportunities do you have? I did cover that one. Sorry, I'm just working through. You have completed a degree in psychology in Sri Lanka, but not honors. Okay, so if you have a bachelor's degree in psychology in Sri Lanka, but you haven't done the honors year, to be eligible to enter our honors year program, you would need to, similar to the nursing question, check with Deakin to see that your undergraduate bachelor's degree from Sri Lanka is equivalent to our undergraduate bachelor's degree in Australia. And if you reach out to Student Central at Deakin University, they can probably help direct you on that, because to get entry into honours at Deakin, you need to have that undergraduate degree covered off, and it needs to be to Australia's requirements. So you just need to check that if you've studied it in Sri Lanka, that it still meets Australia's requirements. That's what you'd need to check. All right, someone has I think there's a couple of questions like this about if you already have a pre-existing degree, whether it be a master's or a different qualification from Sri Lanka. If anyone has a different degree in psychology at any level from a different institution or any institution in Sri Lanka, they have to be checked in Australia. So you'd need to reach out to check whether the whole degree is equivalent. Sometimes what happens is it might be credited for 1 year of the bachelor's or 2 years of the bachelor, not the whole thing. Sometimes it's just different. Yeah. Okay. I think I have covered most of these questions. Yeah.
Yeah,
Did you want to ask a question? Yeah.
yeah. Hi. First of all, yeah, I mean, it was an informative session. I have two questions that I would like to ask you. So first one is it's related to how job experience translate to the Australian context. So I mean, if you can comment on that, because even me and most of my friends, they have worked here in Sri Lanka, quite extensively. So we would like to know, like, how does it translate into the Australian with the Australian companies and organizations?
So what
Thank you.
type of job experience do you mean? Sorry.
For example, so I'm into industrial and organizational psychology. So I have
Yeah.
worked exclusively with a consulting firm here
hmm
as an employee there. So I would
hmm
like to know, like, with that experience, could I apply for a job in Australia, or exactly, how that works?
It would completely depend on what type of job you were looking for. So I work at Deakin University around us. I teach into our psychology courses. So it sounds like you're interested in organizational psychology. If you have job experience, that's wonderful, but ultimately you can't work as an organizational psychologist unless you've done that full pathway, and then you're a qualified organizational psychologist. But in terms of just if your work experience is recognized, it will be recognized by an employer, and they'll want to know what sort of work experience you have. I couldn't say it would actually help you get into our psychology course or something like that, though it would depend on the nature of the experience exactly. But work experience would be recognized by an employer over here in a job interview and on a CV, that sort of thing. That's all going to be recognized. If that answers your question, hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So thank you
Okay.
so much.
Oh, that's
And then
okay. Yeah.
Yeah, the second thing is, so I'm coming from a UK degree. So I have a degree in psychology from a UK university, right?
hmm
So I want to continue my master's there. I mean, even in Deakin, it's fine. But then, like, could I just directly apply for a master's degree, or I've heard that I need to do another additional academic year in order to qualify for a master's. Is that true?
Yeah, so if you have a bachelor's degree, that's there was those 3 courses, remember? So the bachelor's degree was the first one, that's an undergraduate degree. There's the 4th year in the middle, that's like an honors degree. That would have to be done before you can do a master's. The honors degree is the one in the middle, and I see someone in the chat box is asking about entry into the honors year with a bachelor's in psychology from a UK university. That again, like other people who are asking about other degrees they might have from overseas, that degree you have from overseas needs to be assessed by Deakin to ensure it meets the entry requirements into honours. It doesn't that's sort of the answer to anyone that's asking about any degree from anywhere. It doesn't matter if it's Britain or Sri Lanka, it doesn't matter. It's the same thing. They need to be assessed that they meet Australian standards, and if they do, then you might be eligible to apply for the 4th year, the honours year, based on that bachelor's degree. If not, maybe Australia says, oh, this counts for 1 year of the bachelor's in Australia, or 2. They may not say it counts for the whole thing. I don't know. They'd need to look at the specifics of everyone's individual degrees, but that's what you'd need to do. So to get it assessed, you would need to, probably as a first port of call, reach out to Student Central at Deakin University. Just the general email address. It's just, you can just Google Deakin University Student Central and reach out and ask them, because they're going to be way better placed to tell you how to get it assessed for eligibility to then apply for the 4th year program. That's what I would say. Yeah.
Again, thank you so much, Dr. Danby.
No problem. I hope I've been helpful. Thank you, everyone. I hope I've been helpful. Yeah. No problem. Well, maybe we will leave it there then, if I've hopefully answered everyone's questions.
Yes, so thank you so much, Dr. Danby, for the informative session, and it was very interactive as well. So just to touch on the question on scholarships, it was directed towards the doctoral degree. But here at PCHE, we offer scholarships for the diploma, and our students who have transferred to the 2nd year also have received 25% scholarships. So that is based on the students' performance during the diploma here at PCHE. So just wanted to touch on that. And if
amazing, that's a really good scholarship. That's amazing. The answer to my question about the doctorate level later on, that's really tricky later on. So that sort of scholarship opportunity for the PCHE diploma and the entry into the 2nd year bachelor's psych science is amazing. I think that's a really good opportunity.
That's right. And also regarding the post-study work, yes, currently 2 years are provided for students to work after their bachelor's degree. But a minimum of 2 years has to be completed in Australia to get that post-study permit. And also for students who are interested in directly moving to the masters, we do assist to directly place students at Deakin. So if anyone wants to reach out, we are here to support you. So before we wrap up, I would like to introduce some of our students who are transferring to Deakin.
Yes.
So I met Dr. Danby last year in April. So hope to meet you this year as well.
Yes, yeah, hopefully.
So the students who are joined in here today, some of them have already traveled to Australia. So
wonderful.
yes, so these students are here in Sri Lanka, and they'll be moving to the T2 or trimester 2 this year, and some of them to the trimester 1 next year. So if I could have the students, Mishenka, Kavishka, or Kavi, and there's Daniela, Soraya, if you could just switch on your video if possible and say hi to Dr. Danby.
I can see some of the names. Hi, Kavi.
Hi, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm well. Are you excited to come to Deakin in T2?
I am, yes, very excited.
Hi, everyone. Oh, that's wonderful. We're excited to have you.
Oh.
Hi, everyone. I can see you all now. Lots of videos. It'll be so great to meet you all.
So Soraya and Daniela just started their diploma, so
Oh,
they'll be transferred next year.
next year? Yeah, next year. Wonderful. Will you be starting at Deakin in T1 next year then? T1. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, wonderful. Wonderful. Well, my unit, cognitive psychology, it runs in T1. So next year you might be in my unit and we can meet again because it runs straight away. That will be nice to welcome you to Australia in my unit. Wonderful. So
Okay,
lovely to meet you. Yeah, thank you. So lovely to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Thank
You
you.
too.
Thank
Thanks.
you. See you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Meaghan. Thank you for your time. It was very informative and very interesting session.
No
So
problem.
we can have another session, in a couple of months.
Yes.
Yes. So
Yeah.
thank you so much, as always, for all the support.
No problem. No problem at all. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Have a good evening.
See you.
Thank you. Bye.
And thank you to all our participants.
Mm.
Thank you for joining. Have a good day.